'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back, glad to see you looking fresh, and today I have 100 more Marvel characters that can come to Marvel Rivals. Yes, this is a sequel to my last video talking about this topic. I have 100 more characters that could come into the game. I'll be going through each and every single one of them, giving them a class, kind of breaking down a little bit of what I think their moveset could look like. Maybe I'll focus more on their ult, their movability, their power set, whatever. This isn't a total deep dive on 100 characters because we'd be here for a long time. And much like the last time I did this, I will be breaking them down into sections. Some of the sections are the same, some of them are a little different. Of course, we have 100 brand new characters that could potentially come to Marvel Rivals. Maybe they will in the future. I don't know. I don't know what they have planned for the game, but we'll see. Here are 100 more. If you have not watched the last video, feel free to go on back and check that out after you're done here, by all means, because there's 100 different ones there than there are here. But without further ado, this video is going to be pretty long, so let's start off with the villains. We're going to start off on the wrong foot this time, and we're going to start with Kang the Conqueror. So for Kang, I had this cool idea of using Kang's other selves and having him be a tank by being able to have one person who is your normal, like 200, 250 is kind of the bottom. But let's say 200 HP, and then as soon as that one goes down, a second one shows up. And then a third one shows up. It doesn't count for a death, but it counts for like 3 individual cells. So it's hard to like get locked on, it's hard to just get stun lock killed. It's still a tank and still has the same amount of HP, it just plays a little bit differently than other ones. Abomination is gonna be pretty Hulk-like because, I mean, let's be honest, Abomination is pretty Hulk-like as is, but if the thing showed us anything is that you can have two characters with pretty similar power sets, and even roughly similar movesets in the game, and they play pretty differently, right? Abomination doesn't need to be as bouncy, doesn't need to have shield, it doesn't need to re-transform into anything, so it can play pretty differently while also being a big, bulky melee fighter. Crossbones is going to be straightforward, a lot of gunfire. I think it'd be a lot of armor as well, a decent amount of armor, maybe something like Mr. Fantastic where he's got more health than your average DPS, but that make him slow to counteract it, make him slow, have a good bit of armor and a lot of damage output. I think you have a possibly overpowered character, but still one that could be fun. Apocalypse. So this one is going to be interesting. I made him a tank because he's big and he's imposing and he's powerful, right? Simple enough. A character like Apocalypse, you can have him do a ton of interesting things with his moveset. But what's more interesting is the team-up I comprised for him. Fantastic Four showed us that more than 3 character team-ups are possible. They have a 4-character team-up, and I'm proposing a 5-character team-up because Apocalypse is nothing without his 4 horsemen. I say nothing, he's kind of something. But I want to have his 4 horsemen along with him. So the 4 horsemen, of course, have been a lot of famous characters in Marvel history. I have picked 4 characters that have not been in the game before, and this is our way to introduce them into the game. So in a perfect world, they show up in like an Apocalypse season, so there's 5 character drops instead of 4, and they all show up and they have their regular costumes kind of after the fact, or maybe if you play the season that they come out, you get the Apocalypse skin, and if you don't, you have to get it some other way. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling on that, but I wanted to break that down before getting into them. So let's start with some of the horsemen, of course. Start with Death. I have Grim Reaper. That just made the most sense. There are some, of course, like I said, there are other characters that have Bennett, but I wanted to pick ones from the comics and ways to bring them in that I wouldn't have probably anyways. So Grim Reaper as Death, he has his energy scythe, he has necromancy. I think he's the coolest one to have be the Rider of Death. Sunfire is Famine. Sunfire is a pretty cool mutant. I really like his design more than his character, but his design's pretty awesome. He has his plasma blasts. He also can make people hungry by emitting light. So that's kind of why I had him be more support, is because he kind of maybe do damage and use that like hunger to give health to his teammates, maybe some way. I don't know. Maybe also like the hunger meter is another weird affliction in this game. There's a bunch of weird stuff they can do with that. Pestilence is gonna be Caliban. He change his own body around. Sure, that could be his way of maybe making himself a little bit stronger, maybe give himself a buff, maybe body augment his teammates as well. And also, he can inflict fear. And so the whole fear thing, I would like if fear kind of worked like you made somebody like weaker to you, but also like maybe gave them like a slightly speed buff so they can get away faster. Something like that, because obviously if you just made a character weaker to your attacks, that seems to be like a little busted. Also, he has the power to sense mutants. I don't know necessarily how to make it work only against mutants. I think that'd be silly to segment and nerf just a subset of characters. I think to give him maybe the power to like see some enemies, see through walls, stuff like that could really work. Maybe give that to a teammate or something. Could also be an interesting way to go about it. And for war, I picked a Deathbird. Simple, razor wings and flight, and I would like it if they all could ride a horse, maybe on just like some silly animation, or probably more just a victory screen. But those are the 4 horsemen, and I would love just their team up to work together, have Apocalypse be the linchpin, and then for every horseman, maybe he gets more powerful. Maybe the horseman gets a buff just for having Apocalypse there. So it's not like it's a crazy buff, but if you have all 4 horsemen and Apocalypse, it's a pretty crazy team. So Apocalypse, I segmented this, it's funny. Apocalypse was kind of not done well in the movies, and so I grouped a bunch of characters that weren't done well in the movies. Morbius is a character I don't really like. The movie made it worse, but I'll give him his due diligence. I made him a DPS. He is a vampire. Vampires are on my mind because of the season we're currently in. Is the Dracula season right now in Marvel Rivals. So any kind of vampiric thing, we don't have a vampire character in the game yet, so any classical vampire powers you want to give him, and that's pretty much it for him. MODOK is another character that's been tainted by the movies. He's a big floating head with guns, and he's goofy, sure, but he also he's big. So to not make him a tank would be silly, because he has a huge hitbox. And so not giving him the health to back it up, I think would be kind of strange. But also, I think he'd be kind of fun to play. He has a good amount of weaponry, but also he can fly sometimes. I don't think he should be able to fly, but I think he should have like a jet boost, kind of like Star-Lord does. Taskmaster, yet another character that's been kind of tainted by the movies. I'm going very much with the comic book ones. Taskmaster's a pretty easy one conceptually to put together. I think you have Cap Shield, I think you have a couple other characters, weapons, maybe Magneto's sword, because his sword comes to mind first. You could just mix together a couple different people's moves and copy paste it onto one character, and there's your Taskmaster. Ruby Thursday, now I'm getting into some weird stuff. Ruby Thursday I have down as a support. She has a head of like living, it's like a living sphere, and it has like tendrils and stuff that come out of it. And I made her support because I feel like her tendrils could like drop down. I also bounce back between making her maybe a tank, making her like give her shield, and maybe those can give her teammates shields. Maybe she's a shield focused support instead of a healer. I think that could differentiate her. Plus, she just would look pretty cool. She's a pretty gnarly looking character. Sentinel, I wouldn't have just put a Sentinel in, but I think these Sentinels are way too iconic to not include in some way, shape, or form. I think that it'd make more sense if it was like an arcade mode or something, but nonetheless, my love for Marvel vs. Capcom wouldn't leave it out either. They're big, and they're big robots, essentially. They're good at killing mutants, and so they can fly, they can do things. It's just like, again, having characters that are just good against mutants feels cheap against mutants, so I don't know if they would do that. I feel like they probably have some weird team-ups with some of them, something like Magneto maybe. Bullseye, yeah, he could have any weaponry, and he's DPS, clearly. But I had an idea for either an ult or an ability. You know how when Star-Lord ults, he does like an auto-aim? Bullseye's whole thing is that he doesn't miss. So what if he had an auto-aim or something like that? To where maybe he has an ability and he has auto-aim for like 2 seconds or something like that. Or maybe his ult is just auto-aim and he doesn't have to fly during it. So kind of just ripping off Star-Lord's, but it's on the ground instead. I don't know, there's a couple things they could do with that. I think that's the way to go with it if they're going to do Bullseye. Mr. Sinister, I really like the idea of him being a support because he can heal himself, essentially, without getting into the weeds of it, so I would just kind of stretch it and say he can heal his teammates. Also, he can create others of himself, kind of like Loki does, so my mind definitely went more into the strategist camp with him. Whiplash, I mean, having big whips, kind of cool, you know, without like playtesting different abilities, like maybe having quick whips, maybe having like a whip crack, maybe having him grab people and stuff like that. There's different ways you can play about it. On paper, he sounds kind of boring, but I think in practice, he'd be way better. Enchantress. So she kind of has like any magical power without having like occultism in her stead. So I had her be a healer because like magic stuff is weird when it comes to just attacking. So let's have her kind of heal. I know she's mainly known for seduction, but just segmenting, be like, yeah, she's just good against the male characters. Again, it is weird to have her really good against half. No character has a thing where they're good against certain characters off rip. Like some of, just design-wise, yes. But just a flat, like, this group of characters is weak against this character. They don't really have that. Maybe they could do that if they wanted to have one the other way around too. So like half of it is weak to this character and half of it is weak to this character. So there's a way you could balance it. But I don't really have that right now. But as a blanket statement, if they want to do that for Enchantress, they pick another character to do it with. I think that could work. Swarm is a man made of bugs. And even how gnarly that sounds is exactly how gnarly I want him to be. I want him to be AoE attacking all the time. I want nothing but, I want, much to like his name, swarms of insects attacking people all around him. He's a tough guy to get to. I mean, he's built of a million little pieces, so he should be a tough one to get to. Red Guardian, he's a slower Captain America, and he has more health. That's all I can think of with Red Guardian. I really wanted to include him. There wasn't a good way to differentiate him, but again, with a moveset like Captain America, either way to make a power set similar, you could do a whole different moveset. Just the way certain things work, like the shield throw maybe works a different way. I don't even think Red Guardian's really known for shield throw, so maybe just take that away from him. He can do other stuff. Maybe not have the pounce the way that Captain America does. Different ways, way to mix it up for sure. Ghost is a weird character to kind of parse into a certain segment. Having her be able to phase through walls, having maybe more teammates be able to phase through walls. I think having a character that is more about flanking but isn't a great flank themselves and maybe can buff flanks is an interesting idea for a support character. Maybe not a great healer, but a support in a different way. Stegron is a dinosaur man, and that's cool enough on its own for me to talk about that. Of course, it's going to be a tank. I mean, look at the guy. What more could you want? Orca, same basic idea, but this one is more aquatic, and maybe he can swim kind of like Jeff does. A quick moving tank like that, but has to half submerge himself to get around. Maybe not be able to heal himself down there. Maybe when he goes down, he can heal himself up to a certain amount. Something like how Venom can have half shield. Maybe he goes down and can get up to half shield while down there, and that's the timer. So if you're down the full time, you can get up to half your shield back. Yeah, that kind of works. I think that could work. Piecemeal is a weird character. So he, like Taskmaster, I have the idea of him stealing moves. So like Loki can steal ults. I feel like Piecemeal could steal moves, but in a way where he has to attack first. So he has like his own moveset, and then when he attacks an enemy, he gets like one of their moves. What move would it be? I would assume, to make it kind of fair, it would just be their normal fire. So you're not getting like go against a healer and then you attack a healer and you get a healing thing, or you get like a special shield thing, or like a crazy portal, for instance. You just get their normal fire, some better, some worse. I think that's an interesting way to do piecemeal. So now that we're done the villains, let's hop into the heroes. We'll start with White Tiger. I'm going with the Ava version from the comics. She has the healing factor. She has claws. So, kind of envision something in between a Wolverine and a Black Panther. I think something like that would work for her. Rawhide Kid, we're getting into some more Western stuff. I mean, he's pretty simple. He's got a gun. He's got a horse. There's not a ton that you can do to fancify it, but I mean, gunslinging characters have worked in hero shooters before, so I don't see why Rawhide Kid couldn't work here. Red Hawk, I'm talking about the Cheyenne one. I know there's two of them. I'm talking about the Cheyenne one, and he's an expert tracker. That's basically what he's known for, so I made him be a support in the way of, like, I wonder if he has an ability where he can do like an after image, but maybe it doesn't like work in the way Hawkeye's does, where he can attack the after image. He can just kind of see where everyone goes. So like some characters, they disappear or they wisp away. You can't hurt them, or maybe you can, but they're really hard to hit. Maybe he can just kind of see their trail, not necessarily see their outline or anything, but see their trail. Maybe that's an ult. Maybe that's just an ability where he can like plop it down in a certain area, and then every character that passes through, he can see their trail after they left. I think that's an interesting way to make Red Hawk work. Gwenpool. I thought of Gwenpool's movesets, and she doesn't technically have any powers, but she, like Deadpool, knows she's there's a fourth wall. How do we make that work? Well, in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Deadpool's ultimate took pieces of the actual UI of the game and used that to her advantage. I think that could work in something like this. I think it'd be a lot harder to make it work, but maybe having her, like, it looks like she's grabbing something from the corner of the screen and hucking it towards the enemy, but it's just the animation and how it looks on your side. I think it's a lot of aesthetics when it comes to Gwenpool to make it work. Fourth wall stuff, when done right, is pretty fun and interesting, and in a game like this, it could really make her stick out. Plus, having a Jeff team up would be a lot of fun. She-Hulk is a damaged Hulk. She's slimmer, she doesn't have the shield, maybe she doesn't have to transform, but she can still bounce and she can still hit pretty hard, but she just doesn't have all the extra health. I think she'd probably, I don't know if hit harder per se. Hulk hits pretty hard, especially when he bulks out like that. So maybe she hits roughly hard, but she's a lot quicker and more maneuverable. She doesn't have the shield stuff, and she has a little bit something else to make her better, because if you're just ripping things away from Hulk and calling her DPS, that's not going to be very good. But have a little something to differentiate her for sure. Photon. Light-based powers are always, my brain just goes to let him heal. Sometimes that can be a little lame, but a character like Photon, she's really shown up in the MCU more, and she can fly, so a flying healer. Try to avoid that concept, because a flying healer, especially too many flying healers, can be very scary. But I think that's probably where she would be at for me. America Chavez. If you thought portaling was crazy before, have a character that's just based on portaling. So a strange portal where the whole team can go, and magic portals where she's teleporting around and doing different abilities. Stuff like that. Portal-based movesets rather than portals just as part of their moveset. Shroud. This is basically the Batman of the Marvel universe. Anything Batman could have, think of that as your moveset. You're talking grappling hooks, you're talking not batarangs, but basically batarangs, smoke grenades to get away, gliding capabilities, stuff like that. He's the Batman that would be if Batman was in this game. Ironheart, very Iron Man-esque. I think giving her different propulsion blasts, but also making her a tank would be the way to go. A flying tank in concept doesn't sound necessarily very good for the type of game that it is. I think in certain game modes it could be pretty good, but in normal gameplay, a flying tank could be not very good, but it'd be an interesting idea because we don't have one of those yet. Kahori, this is an MCU original character. She was given the Tesseract, or the Space Stone, and typically the Space Stone is in the MCU especially is like, look, it can travel you through space, and it can, so let's have it do that, but also it can warp space around her, so there's a infinite amount of things they could do with her moveset to make it more interesting. But to keep it simple for myself, I just like, yeah, she can move her teammates and maybe her enemies around, and also help out with buffs and debuffs and such of the like. Kazar is Tarzan, basically. Yeah, swinging on a vine, hitting people with a spear. I think it's kind of fun just to have a DPS which is just like a dude. Like I said, swinging on vines, and maybe he has a spear. I don't know. You can go as weird or as simple as you want with Kazar, and I think it could still be fun. Like I said, just in practice, like, it's just a guy, and he just like punches like a robot. Like, that's kind of cool. Deathlock is your Terminator, right? Robots, so I like to have them have like maybe more shields than health. I like the idea of robotic characters having shields instead of health in video games. So maybe something like that, but basic gun-toting robots. That's Deathlock's whole gig. So now we are going to jump into some mutants. Some of the mutants I didn't talk about in my last video. We are going to start with Havoc, the older brother of Cyclops. His powers can be as big or as simple as they kind of want to be. It's kind of the same. I think Cyclops like is in the game already, but kind of a beam that shoots from his chest versus his eyes. But also his ult could just be like it unleashed, and it's just a crazy wave of a concussive energy around him. Banshee, I really like the idea of him flying, but gliding, but he can fly by just shooting a beam of voice straight down. So he attacks in like a beam attack, sure, but also if he shoots at the ground, he can give himself not infinite flight, but flight until he has to quote unquote reload. Because I think a beam attack should still have to reload, quote unquote, even though it's like he take like a breath or something as his reload animation. Marrow, aesthetically, is so cool. Her being a tank and having her bones just like crack out and give her more shield as she goes would just look so cool. I think an aesthetic alone on this character would be enough for me to want her in this game. Toad is a weird dude. I think he could have poison, and with his tongue lashing, so his tongue is a weird thing to just build a moveset around, but it can grab, it can stick to things. I think it could work like a quick grapple where he can grab on and he can whip himself place to place. And also grab his enemies and maybe slam them around. But also, yeah, poison, I think is an interesting thing where maybe it like hurts them a little bit over time, and that could be really interesting if Toad is given a moveset like that. Lady Deathstrike is a character much like Wolverine, has an adamantium skeleton, so she doesn't have the regen factor. So you could argue she should be a tank as well. But I have her as DPS because she's much more seen as more athletic attacking type than a take damage and dish your back type. So her being able to sling around and fight with cool swords and such is really interesting, but maybe give her more health, like Wolverine level health, because she has the adamantium skeleton. I think that's a good way to balance her. Azazel is a teleporting guy, much like Nightcrawler in the last video, but to differentiate the two, I'm going to lean Azazel more into the support role, maybe be able to teleport his teammates around, maybe attacking in slightly different ways, kind of an attack flank, but a healer flank, I suppose. So that's an interesting way to go about it. A sneaky flank, but it's heals instead of damage. I guess that could work. X-23 is a lot like Wolverine. Much like Deathstrike, I mean, she's a clone sometimes of Logan. So having her be a slashy, maybe have the rage meter like Wolverine does, but she's He's smaller in stature, so I assume she'd have less damage or less HP and more speed to mix it up. Maybe she slashes faster immediately and doesn't build up as much. Kind of a strange like tune here. So you tune down either the damage and you tune up the speed. A weird mix max of different changes to a Wolverine to make a X-23 viable. Bishop is a character with a big gun, which already makes it a lot of fun. But also, he can take in a lot of damage, a lot of input in on him, and then be able to redirect the energy somewhere else. So, you can do that in different forms. Being able to basically have an attack where the more damage he takes in, the more he can dish out. Kind of like how Mr. Fantastic can do. But maybe he can, or use it as like ammo or something, and tap it into his bullets and use it to spray whoever he wants instead of just one big fire. I think that's a cool way for Bishop to operate. Warpath is just a weapon-toting, insane character. Yeah, something like Punisher has a lot of weapons. He only has like 2. His normal move kit. Warpath has a ton. So, that easy the way to go for him. Sunspots. I want Sunspot to be a support. Cauterizing wounds is the way my brain thought about it. You can use heat as both damage and support, right? You can dish it out and also heal. I think he'd be a good mix of both. I think him being a little flimsy on his own defense, but him being able to dish out a lot of damage and also healing his teammates could be a lot of fun. He's another one that could be flyer, but again, I'm trying not to make too many flying healers for sure. That sounds like a scary concept to have. Polaris. So, Polaris in the comics has roughly the same moveset as her father Magneto. Aesthetically, sometimes she is compared to Scarlet Witch, but since her movesets could be used very differently, because Magneto, if I was to create a moveset on Magneto, I wouldn't have come up with what they had here. I think her being a support and being able to essentially, in my head, like put bullets as armor onto her teammates. It's like fallen shrapnel turned into armor and used as such, as her quote-unquote healing. I think is pretty cool. That's, on paper, that's her starting point, and then what she can do with actual metal manipulation is what else they come up with, you know. Domino is a toughie, because how do you portray luck? I thought of her abilities. Maybe this is an ult, maybe this is just a passive. It'd be kind of a crazy passive. All her shots count as a critical hit, so basically a headshot, right? So basically, no matter where you hit on the character, it counts as a headshot. Maybe it needs to be a hard shot to hit, and maybe the shot itself doesn't necessarily do a lot of damage, but it always counts as a headshot. So even if you shoot him in the head, that's a crit too, but you don't need to hit him there. Glob Herman. What a fun guy this is going to be. He's a tank. He is a glob, right? He's a flammable glob too. So I had this goofy idea of what if he can just take parts of himself off, like he can, and huck them at people. But also, because he's a flammable blob, if he could turn those blobs into flaming little grenades and huck those at people, now that's the ticket. That's the ticket to making Glob Herman a fun character. Darwin is a tank. He is a man who can basically change his person to take anything on. He can evolve to anything. I think it'd be cool if he had to have this ability where he had to switch. It doesn't do it on the fly, but maybe he like could swap forms to take on different types of attack. So like straight attack or stun attack or freeze attack, stuff like that, to where he had to manually swap forms to do that. Humbug is a tank, right? He is a man who has an exoskeleton and he can talk to bugs. So he is going to be able to withstand a ton of attacks, and also, like Namor, be able to place down bugs instead of deep sea creatures and take out his enemies. So I think that could be a pretty interesting character. Omega Red is a tank. I mean, look at the guy. He's got 2 long appendages that he could use to whip his enemies, maybe grab his enemies, bring them close, beat him up close because he has a lot of health. and a lot of shield to be able to bring maybe a sniper, just whip him close and take him out. Spiral, she's a lady with 6 arms and 6 swords. You can figure out what I want her to do. She's going to be a heck of a dive character. She's going to be slashing so much, it's going to be crazy. Blue Marvel, essentially a Superman-esque character, a flying tank, where, much like Ironheart, we don't have any yet. On paper, they don't seem that good, but I think it's the best way for a character like Blue Marvel to fit into this game. Darkhawk has metal wings and can shoot out metal feathers, and he can fly. So, simple enough character on paper, but could be kind of fun. Another flyer character, flying DPS, that basically the only flyers that they like are flyer DPS, so I think that's the way to go with him. Boom Boom, she goes by a ton of names, but I'm just going to call her Boom Boom. She makes explosions, so maybe kind of like Penny, where she puts down mines everywhere. She can place explosions, or she can toss explosions at you, like grenades basically, but they are explosions in aesthetics. I think she can be fun. In Jia Jing, so for her, I will say I have read some of the leaks. I don't believe a lot of the leaks, but she's one of the characters that are getting pushed a lot. And it makes sense. There's not a lot of Chinese Marvel characters, especially not a lot of good ones. So having one of the newer mutants be in this game, developed by a Chinese team, it makes sense that they would want another inclusion, representation of that for sure. She's a blue pixie, essentially, or fairy, with strong skin. So a flying tank again, but that's her move kit, and that's what her powers are. So a small moving tank, small flying tank, one that's hard to hit, but maybe doesn't hit that hard. I think is an interesting way to go about it. So we're out of the mutants. Let's hop over to one of the new categories here. I have one basically just the Spider-Man, Spider-Verse characters, because it's a group that I did not touch on in the last video at all. So let's of course start with Miles Morales. He is Spider-Man. He's going to play like Spider-Man, but we have to lean a lot into the electrical powers to make him different. He can disappear. He can web swing still. He can zap people, and sometimes he can make an electric sword. So I think that could be his ult right then and there. That's his moveset. Is it a scary thought to have a Spider-Man that is as much of a menace as Peter is in this game and can also disappear? Yeah. But if we're going to put Miles in, that's what we're going to have him do. Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman. I don't have the other Spider-Woman in here. If you want to have her one, I guess there's another one we can do. But Spider-Gwen, I have Gwen Stacy, obviously. To differentiate her, I made her supports. Again, she's a spider person. So her power set's the same, but her moveset doesn't need to be the same. Right? So there's different gadgets, and especially Spider-Gwen is typically shown off to have a portal through dimensions, so her being able to portal her teammates around and having different spider abilities where maybe she can use the webs to wrap somebody up and tie somebody up and just leave them there a lot, or maybe tie up somebody's wounds and that can be a heal. There's a lot of gadgets Spider-Man have, Spider-People in fact have, that aren't utilized in just Spider-Man. Spider-Punk, I want also to be a support. I want it to lean a lot into his guitar though. Noise-based attacks and noise-based healing. Basically think of it like a bard, right? He can buff and he can do healing with his guitar, and I think it'd be pretty cool aesthetic to have a web-slinging character and a guitar on his back. Spider-Man 2099 on paper already is the easiest to differentiate between all the Spider-Man because he has different powers, right? A lot of people think of him like a vampire because he has poison and fangs and claws. Like, he's different than a lot of these Spider-Men, and he's gonna be scary to play against. It's a lot. And poison is a cool concept I have, where like if you get hit by him, maybe even if you escape from him, you're still getting ticked damage down to a certain extent, right? I don't think it should automatically kill you, but I think if you get hit with a poison attack, maybe it does 50 or 100. 100 seems like a lot, but 50 damage, regardless if you get away or not. Even if you get a health pack, it's gonna do 50 damage round trip. And Spider-Ham, So no Noir. Spider-Ham is the last one. Noir can just be a costume for Peter. Spider-Ham I have a bit tank because it's a goof. It's a goofy pick. It's cartoon pick, big, like, cartoon hammers and silliness afoot. Cartoon logic in comic is much more powerful than comic logic is, so I had to be a tank to be able to just take in more damage than other ones can. The Prowler is kind of like on Spider-Man 2099 in terms of how I envision his moveset's going to be. He's going to be quick. He's going to be a four-legged wall crawler, but not a wall crawler, if that makes sense. Maybe like a little bit like Black Panther, but different. No spear, no basts, stuff like that. No vibranium mark, anything like that. Vulture. I have another flying tank here. I think that's a common thread through this list of characters, because otherwise you just have a guy in wings, and there's not anything cool there. Him having more metal wings, gadgets up there, but also having a lot of shield and being able to protect himself makes the character more interesting to play. Tombstone is a big, tough guy, and that's basically it. He's going to be on the ground, and you can just have him do weird, I don't know, gangster stuff. I don't know what that even entails. Just a gun? Just a big man that looks like a tombstone with a gun. Sure enough, there's your Tombstone. In Silver Sable, she's a high-tech, assassin-esque character. She always has the latest and greatest in weaponry, so maybe she can be a sniper. Maybe she can be more up-close DPS, but I like her kind of a sniper. We don't have a lot of snipers, and with a list of 100 characters, I think having one of them be a sniper makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's jump into outer space. This section is just called Aliens on my notes, but basically outer space characters, off-world characters, the like. Because we're starting with Cosmo, who's not an alien. She is from Earth. But Cosmo the space dog, and she has telekinetic powers. To make her more simple, have her be a support, maybe turn off the pain in someone's brain, that was what heals them. Beam-esque attacks like Scarlet Witch is how I feel as he would attack. So basically I'm creating Cloak and Dagger in one character, but on 4 legs, and she can float, so that's a lot of fun. Laufey, having another character that could freeze. Freeze is a mechanic that not a lot of characters have, and another one based around that, slowing down opponents, being able to freeze them, maybe being able to freeze a good number of them, and that's basically your whole purpose. Plus I think a team up with Loki would be kind of cool. Gore, he has a symbiote sword, and symbiotes are pretty deep into the lore of this game, and Gore is one of those characters that has immense power and so much stuff in the comics that they could do, so it's kind of hard to pin down exactly what he will do in a game like this, but just having a symbiote sword aesthetically is pretty cool on its own. Malekith, the Dark Elf, of course, he can do elven things. Picture your typical fantasy elf, right? They're born and bred from the idea of Norse mythology anyway, so let's just lean into the aesthetic. I know dark elves in Marvel Comics and elves in fantasy typically, and dark elves in Norse mythology are 3 different things, but let's just kind of combine them into one. What do you think an elf can do? Malekith can probably do, just make it a little bit more edgy if they're going to lean into the whole Dark World aesthetic. Lady Hellbender. If you play the Guardians of the Galaxy game, you know Lady Hellbender. She's pretty cool. She has huge weapons, and she is a big gal, and she's going to be a really cool tank in this game. Plus, be able to swap weapons for different scenarios, that could be a lot of fun. Different melee weapons, too, that's cool. I like that one a lot. Angela, Thor's forgotten sister. Interestingly enough, she doesn't need to eat the golden apple to retain her invulnerability as a Norse god. She just has that. So definitely leading into that in terms of her being a tank. Obviously, like Thor and Loki don't need to eat golden apples in the game, but she could definitely make a crack about that in like a pre-game fight. But I think she could be a lot of fun. She has typical melee capabilities and Asgardian might, so more DPS leaning tank than just a straight up stand there and take it kind of tank, but still a tank nonetheless. Mania, So when picking another symbiote, I was looking at Scream and I was like, Mania is cooler. I only wanted to pick one more. Have that one be the support of the trio, because if I have Venom as a tank, and if you watch the last video, Carnage as a DPS, Mania would be the support, complete the three. And the idea I had for her is like the symbiote kind of like crawls off for a little bit and then goes on to somebody else and gives them health, and then like aesthetically it'd be pretty cool. Like I don't know if you had to like throw it or if it like kind of crawled along the ground to it. I think that could be pretty fun. Maximus of the Inhumans, he has like mind powers, so something like that is entirely vague, and again, like other characters I've said in this video, just being able to turn off pain but inflict pain. Kind of like a beam, but maybe like an AoE or something like that. He also is an Inhuman, so he just has normal special powers versus his superpowers that make him special. If that made any sense to you. There's no Inhumans in this game yet, so I don't know how they're going to handle it, but Maximus is one of the more famous ones, but one of the more harder ones to make an interesting moveset for. Gorgon, also of the Inhumans, he has bow legs, which make him pretty big, and I think he'd be a tank. Like, he's just a big guy, and he's like a reverse Minotaur, right? So, I think he'd be a tank. I think that just makes sense. Triton, also Inhuman, well, the last of the Inhumans I have here. He is an aquatic-based character, and the idea I had for him that would be pretty cool is what if he had to be underwater, quote-unquote, like how Jeff goes underwater, because he can't breathe air. So what if he has to be underwater, and he has to, like, come up a little bit to attack, but he's like half and half, so he's not like gaining health or anything. But maybe he can come all the way out and do more damage, but he hurts himself in the process. Like he has this like a slowly ticking clock, so it's like one damage a second, maybe. Being up, maybe that's not enough for how much they can balance it. More damage, less damage, more health tick, whatever. Being up in the air for a certain amount of time would do damage, but he could do. He hurt himself, and that's a cool mechanic. Goose the Cat, another MCU original. So Goose is not just a cat. It is a alien that can has a pocket dimension inside its stomach, and it's a cool character that you would have to have its tentacles out all the time. Otherwise, you're just shooting a cat, and that's not cool. But going after an alien like that. Supports something like Jeff being able to put someone in your stomach and move people around like silently. It's just a mobile command unit where you could pit people in your stomach and move them around without hurting them. Okay, I can see something like that being fun. Starhawk. So he is a character like a lot of crazy characters that don't get a lot of spotlight. Is like, oh, his powers are immeasurable and he's so strong and we don't even know how strong he is. So, I'll give you a slight breakdown. He is powered by a hawk god, maybe, sorta. He has precognition, maybe, sorta. Like, even these characters are just like, oh yeah, he's just so strong. So, I'm thinking after image or pre-image is how they probably phrase it, where he can attack where someone's been and it hurts them. That's the only thing I can think of. Other than that, like, he just busted, right? It's just make a character, he's just the most powerful character in the game. Sure. Sounds like it could be fun if you're using it, but not very fun if anyone else uses it against you. Kismet, or Ayasha, is one of those ones that the name changed a lot. I wanted her to be a tank. She doesn't necessarily look like a tank, but I think she could be a fun tank. She has regen, she has an energy blast, she is of an alien race that has like a strong skin to them, so I think that could be pretty interesting to have as a tank. Super Skrull, if you know me, you know I'm not a fan of Skrulls, but I couldn't leave the Super Skrull out for a second time. He's too important of a character, especially now with the Fantastic Four in the game. Of course, Super Skrull has the powers of the Fantastic Four, so he's not a very easy character like Taskmaster to be like. He has 4 moves for the characters. Maybe he has a fire blast. He has the thing Haymaker. He has some sort of stretchy power. And he has a shield or a disappear or something like that. Literally take 4 moves from the Fantastic Four and give it to Super Skrull. And that's your character. That's accurate, and it could be fun to play as. Hepzibah, who I will not say her name because I do not think she looks like a cat. I think she looks more like a skunk. And she has the power of a skunk. If you're unaware, she has pheromone manipulation, is how it's basically described. So, her being able to control different smells through different things screams healer to me. And being able to heal people by making a very pleasant scent, but also being able to create a very stinky scent and be able to hurt her enemies like a skunk. That's where I'm thinking she would be at. So let's move from sci-fi into more fantastical. I call this chapter The Occult. I'll start with Wong, another Sorcerer Supreme, much like Doctor Strange. To differentiate him, I made Wong into a support character because there are a bajillion different spells that the Sorcerer Supreme has, and having one that can buff, debuff, and heal his allies, I think, makes a lot of sense. Urthana, another one, wannabe Sorcerer Supreme, very Cthulhu-looking character. He is Doctor Strange-esque, but I want him to be more on the offensive. I want him to be a DPS. Doctor Strange has a ton of interesting spells, like some even have been seen in the movies, and obviously long time in the comics. So, while I can't rip off like a dozen spells for him to use in his moveset, I know that the devs can. To have one focus more on doing damage than putting up shields is obvious to do. Hood. So he is a demon transforming hood cloaking character. So take your magic, take your cloak and dagger, and that's Hood. Essentially, obviously he's a marksman and he's like he's a criminal. So he also has a gun. So magic, cloak and dagger, and someone with a gun, and that's Hood. Dormammu, who has a direct connection to Hood, I think it'd be a fun team up to just have them drop at the same time, has so many powers. He's just one of those extra dimensional beings of infinity. The main thing I leaned on Dormammu is his power bestowment, and like with Hood, so being able to just straight damage buff his teammates and being able to maybe give them like special, like a new power. Maybe it's the same power across every character, so certain characters would benefit from it more. But I think that's an interesting way to have Dormammu feel different from other supports, but also be able to definitely be a support. Robbie Reyes, another Ghost Rider. So in my last video, I said that Johnny Blaze should be a tank. Robbie Reyes, I want to be a DPS, so lean more on different powers that the Ghost Rider is capable of. Of course, instead of the bike, you have the car. So that could be his ult for sure. Different chain, I mean, his have a cool little scythe hook on it to do different powers. Maybe different flame ticks, kind of like Human Torch does. A lot of cool stuff you could do with him. And also, the Phantom Rider, another of the Ghost Riders. This one being the one on the horse. I have him being a support, just basically because him being able to ride a horse and move around fast and use the fire to help. And maybe he's the one with the penance stare. Maybe it freezes everybody and it does damage based on some certain thing. I don't know. To all his enemies. That could be a lot of fun. To have the 3 of them, 3 different movesets, but a similar aesthetic. What a cool team up they would have. Death herself. So, I think it's kind of backwards to have her be a support instead of a DPS, but I think that's what makes her interesting. Her having to deal damage and then put that damage back into some of her teammates could be interesting. Death as a character would have cool team-ups if said characters like Deadpool and Thanos were in the game, but they're not. So there is something there for her to have and to do, but it's one of those characters, again, she has so many interesting moves that it's hard for me to come up with something, but the devs definitely could. Shuma Gorath is a weird tentacle monster with a big eye. And much like Dormammu, he has a bajillion different powers that are totally unexplored, and they're just said to have had. If he plays like anything like he does in Marvel vs. Capcom, it'll be some eye blasts and some slappy tentacles. But he's big and he's scary and he can do a lot. The Ancient One, another of the Sorcerer Supremes. I have this one also as a support, like Wong, mostly because the one in Endgame was playing support, and the Ancient One is typically not seen as one to be an aggressor, but one to definitely protect things. So that made a lot of sense for them to be a support. And Zombie Gladiator. So Gladiator is another Superman of the Marvel lexicon. His name is literally Kal-Ark. You know, like Kal-El. He's Superman. So to differentiate yet another Superman, I literally have like Blue Marvel in this video, and I have other Superman-esque characters in the last one. So I wanted to turn him into a zombie because the Marvel Zombies is such a cool story, and I wanted to have one character from that universe, and Gladiator being a character that I wouldn't have really wanted to include any other way, I think works to fit that role. Just that aesthetic, giving other characters that costume can be a lot of fun, but having one character that's based on their zombie alternative character like Gladiator, where, yeah, he has Superman-like powers, but maybe strip some of it away, like he can't fly because he's a zombie, and he has some zombie-esque movement, like he's really slow, but he still has his powers, because for whatever reason, the zombies of the Marvel Universe still have their powers, which make them even more scary. And finally, the last 10 characters here, I have a list of characters that will make you go, who? And why'd you choose them? Because they're just a fun group of 10 characters that will almost definitely not get chosen for this game. But it's just a lot of fun to talk about the weirdness that Marvel Universe has to offer. So let's start with Hell Cow, a vampire cow. And she is a cow. And she can do vampire stuff. And what more do you need to know? Living Totem is a totem of a person. It can walk around. It has all the powers a totem does, which is, it means it's really big, and it can bonk you pretty hard. What more do you need to know? Hippo! Wouldn't you know it? He's a hippo, man. He can punch you really, really hard. He also looks like a hippo on 2 legs, and that's a lot of fun. And that's not the only hippo we have. Toweret, the Egyptian god. Both in the Moon Knight show and in the comics, she gave the powers to the Sacred Scarab. So I think giving power buffs, giving shield buffs to other characters, I think is an actual way for this character to work. And one of the more normal characters I have in this list of absolute insanity. Four Bushman is a character, much like Gwenpool, has no powers, but he cannot even see the fourth wall. He is a joke character, but they did eventually give him the power to let other characters see their own living hell. How do you turn that into a moveset? I don't know. But maybe something like Cloak and Dagger's blindness, but instead of just making them blind, it hurts them while it happens. Don't know what else you can do with him, but he's a weirdo and I wanted to include him. Throg is a frog who is Thor. And I'm not going to get into it. There's a whole story about a frog war. And this isn't Thor as a frog. This is a different guy entirely. Who is given the power of Thor. That's the short end of it. So imagine a little Thor who can move around and do moves like Thor, but he's a frog. I think that'd be hilarious. And also could kind of work if you make him like the size of Rocket. Be a lot of fun. Koi Boy, friend of Squirrel Girl. Instead of squirrels, it is kois. That is basically it. We're going to have him be a support instead of a DPS, because water just fits for a support character. 8-Ball. So, I knew about 8-Ball for a long time. 8-Ball is the go-to joke character I have when people ask what my favorite character in Marvel Comics is that has not appeared in the movie yet. I always say 8-Ball. He is just a criminal. And there are different stories, but one of the most interesting notes about him, if you look him up, is he is an expert pool player. So what if, while looking like that, he has like a pool cue, and he like holds like a billiard ball in his hand, and he just clocks it. And that's his damage output. Slapstick is your cartoony character. Yes, I could have had like Spider-Man back here as well, but he fit much more in the Spider-Man group. Slapstick is essentially that without the Spider-Man connection to make it make sense. He's a cartoon character in a Marvel comic. And finally, Turf. He is a steak man. What more is there to know? He's a surf and turf with no surf. He is steak and he is turf. So that is my list of 100 more characters that could be added into Marvel Rivals. Are there any more characters that I missed? I can still name a few. Do I plan on doing a part 3 of this video? Probably not. I'm not going to say never, because I said no to doing a part 2, and now here I am doing a part 2. So a part 3 is possible, but I don't know. Let me know if you guys really want to see a part 3. Let me know if you guys, if there's any characters that you really wanted that I did not talk about. Talked about 200 characters in this, and so, but the Marvel Legends run deep, and there are so many characters and so many favorite characters, and I know that I've missed a few people's favorites. That'll happen, but like I said, if you really want a part 3, then let me know. But for now, thank you so very much for watching, and as always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point.